Hello, welcome to part 2 of my video update. My roommate came home, so I moved to a different location. I found this conference room that is kind of on the sky lounge part of our floor because I live on the 7th floor, which is kind of like the overflow for the girls. The majority of the scholars are on the 8th floor, but they took the older students and they put them on the 7th floor as kind of the overflow. And off the 7th floor, there's this kind of lounge that's not really, it connects the two buildings, but I've never seen anybody in here, and it's not the lounge that they referred to that we can hang out in. So if I have to abruptly leave, that's because I'm probably not supposed to be in here. But I'll talk quickly so we can cover everything. I thought in doing these little videos it would be neat to teach you guys some Korean. The first thing that is very important that you learn is my name. That's what it looks like in Korean. It's 3 syllables, Audrey, instead of Audrey. And then my last name is very complicated with a story behind the L's and the R's. So we'll just call me Audrey. Teacher Audrey. I have another word for you guys. It's real simple for you guys to remember. It is banana, but in Korean it's banana, like a minion from Despicable Me would say. You can practice writing it. You draw this little thing that looks like a bucket, and that's the B sound. So that's how I remember that. And then you just got to remember the others, I guess. And then a phrase for you to learn is moleo, which that means I don't know. And I have learned that phrase because I have used that quite a bit. So there's your Korean lesson for the day. So updates about things. This weekend I got to go to Seoul, which was very exciting. Joshua is about an hour and a half bus ride or train ride from Seoul. And it was part of the program is they took us all there for activities during the day, and then it was optional if we stayed, which I would say 85% of us stayed, or if you wanted to return home that night on the bus for free. So we went to Seoul, and the first thing we did was we went to the National Museum, and that's a big art museum. My group leader, he is really into art, and so he played curator and gave a tour, which it would be like asking me to do a seminar on Taekwondo. Like, art is his thing. So it was really cool to kind of hear like his favorite pieces and why, and kind of get the behind the scenes from some of the famous art pieces of Korean culture. We didn't get to spend that much time there, but stop wiggling my chair. It was cool what we did see. Some of my favorite things were they had these giant Buddhas, so that was probably my favorite thing, is like the room of Buddhas. So we saw that first, and then we were dropped off in this area for lunch, and had a lot of shops, and it looked just like any other big city. And I escaped at one point and made it to a department store and was able to buy a camera, so now I have a camera and can start taking pictures. I had to send my camera, which is a Sony camera, back to the United States because although Sony is headquartered in Asia, the repair shop for me apparently is in the United States. Even though we bought the camera in New York, it has to be sent to where else? Texas. So because I would be without a camera for a while, I got a new one, and it's kind of an upgrade, so you'll start to see the pictures and videos just in time, but not in time for the art at the museum. So sorry. We then went to this musical that had a lot of the traditional costumes and instruments. It was called miso. You know, not like, I mean, like the soup, but Miso, it means emotion in Korean. It was really good. And I'm not a big musical person. I don't like sitting through plays. I feel that they're usually kind of corny. But this one was really good. I would recommend it. And then we had free time, so a group of us had planned in advance that we were going to stay together in Seoul this weekend. And we went, and we looked in the little shops. We went to the area of town that would be closer to the hostel that we were going to stay in, and the subway was so packed. The subway itself was just busy like a normal subway would be, but getting off of the subway, you were in line to exit to get onto the street, and you were in a line for like 10 minutes, and it was just like sardines. Like, there was no personal space bubbles. Like, you were literally like thrusting yourself against other people. Like, if you tripped and fell, like, you wouldn't even touch the floor. You'd just be carried off with the people. It was jam packed. I mean, Seoul is, I think, number 2 for populous cities in the world, and I can believe it because most of them were riding the subway that day. And the subway system itself they're clean. They come every few minutes. They make announcements when they're coming. There's very clear announcements what the stops are when you're on the train, and it like flashes the stop in English as well, so it's very travel friendly. But I was like, man, why couldn't, I've lived in a few different places and I've traveled on a lot of different subways, and hands down the best subway system that I've been on. I just don't understand why it can't be better in America, but that's a whole nother discussion. We went and checked in to our hostel, and then our group split. The hostel was pretty nice. I've stayed in a couple of hostels when I lived in Alaska, and this was a pretty good one. And we were kind of in an area where there was a lot to see and do. So a few of us, we went to a couple bars, tried soju. If you want to know what it is, look it up. And the next day, again, we were just looking around in different shops, and we went to a market. And again, with a whole millions of people living here, all going to the market, we had just going through the open market was jam-packed. But it was a cool experience, and it was cool to see. And we took the train back into Joshuan to be back by our curfew time, which was 9 p.m. So it was really fun. I had a lot of fun with the people I was with. I can see myself. One of the girls that was with us is from Australia, and she's been to Seoul several times. She stayed here for a study abroad a couple years ago, so she was very familiar with the city. So that really helped us get around and get on the subway and walk down streets and things like that. But I feel pretty confident that if I came back on my own or with another person, that I could get myself around. So my permanent placement is about 4 hours via bus. I don't know how fast it is via train from Seoul, so if I do want to come back for the weekend, it's totally doable. So that's fun. Practicum. So I talked about it in my blog, and I don't want to repeat too many things in both mediums in case you are an Audrey fan and read my blog and watch my videos. But we got the opportunity to teach for the first time on Monday, a week ago Monday, is our first practicum, and then we have a second practicum that we had today. So the first one was we went into an actual elementary school. We had partners, so we were co-teaching. We could pick the topic. We didn't know necessarily the grade, and we had a lot of flexibility, but we actually went into a classroom with the real students. This practicum, we were doing it just for our classmates. We were in smaller groups, so we have a different practicum class than we have with our normal homeroom class, smaller. and then the assignment was solo teaching, but our peers would be the students or pretend they were students. We had flexibility to pick the class size, but that was it. So you picked out what your topic was going to be, and then you picked out what activity you were required to incorporate with that topic. For example, my topic was daily routines, and my activity had to be storytelling. Some of the combinations complemented each other a little bit better than others. I thought mine went along pretty well. So here's some of the catches. You don't know the age of the students again. You literally showed up today and they flipped a coin, and heads you taught high functioning like 5th and 6th graders. Tails you get 1st and 2nd graders. So you essentially had to make 2 lesson plans incorporating the same material, and I'd be ready on the fly to go. Another coin toss was technology. 1, you get to use technology. 2, you don't. It really helps you to prepare for that real situation. Even though Korea is very high-tech, there's still mishaps that happen, and the projector could go down, or the computer could go down, or what is more likely to happen is, because the government funds English programs and funds materials for English classrooms, they're typically the nicest classrooms in the schools. Well, because of that, anytime there's like a meeting or training or anything special, a lot of times they'll push the English classes out of the English room so that they can use their room for something else. So you might walk in and be like, nope, your class is now going to be in the library today. Or, nope, you're going to have to be in this room outside. So that's very likely and common that you may not have access to technology. So if you are planning solely based on using it, you would have to think on your feet. So it helps us prepare for that. Also, not everyone presented, but everyone had to do the work for the presentation. I unfortunately didn't get to present, and I wanted to. I mean, I'm not heartbroken that I didn't, but I felt like I had a really good plan, and I was on top of it, and my lesson, I thought I was going to do really well. So I was kind of disappointed that I didn't get called up to go, but needless to say, we all had to have the materials done whether we presented or not. Some people, if you knew a second language, they kind of bent the rules, and if you were willing to present in that second language, you could, but you could get an easier topic and were guaranteed to do a lower level. So we had one girl do African, one girl do Spanish, and that was interesting because, again, they're teaching a foreign language, and it's supposed to be like on the flip side, us seeing how it is to be taught a different language like we're a first grader trying to learn it. So that was a cool perspective. We have one more practicum to go, and this time it'll be co-teaching again, but we're going to be partnered up with our Korean co-scholars. So Talk also has the native English speakers, but then it also has the native Korean speakers that are going to be in the classrooms with us, helping to teach, being there as a resource for us. And so it's not necessarily the people we're going to be working with in our cities, but available Korean Talk scholars are going to be in there, and we're going to have to come up with a lesson plan and work together with them and do one more. And for that one, we are guaranteed that we will all be presenting, and we're going to be doing it all day long. And because it's our last one, it's probably going to be our most intense one. Though in years past, they always did going to the school as the last one where you're actually interacting with the kids. So they flipped it around this time. I don't know why, but so that's the last practicum. And then on Friday we had to our Providences for our Providence training for a week. So we'll be packing up and moving down to my more permanent home. Transfer of duties. So we were given very little details along this whole process of where we're going, what we're seeing, what we're doing, all of that. Right before I came, I got the information about my town and what province I'm in. Then on Friday night, they finally gave us, after we watched this movie, our transfer of duties, which is written by the scholar that we're replacing. And some scholars, whether they pieced out, or maybe they weren't there, or they just didn't care, didn't write a lot. And then other people, their scholars were very caring and they wrote a lot of details. Mine, I thought, did a good job. And this isn't set in stone. This is just what they did. It's very likely that I'm going to be doing the same exact thing. So it says that I'll have a studio apartment and that I will live 30 minutes from the school I'm teaching at. So I'll have to walk 10 minutes and then take the bus for 20 each day to get there. I'll be teaching grades 1 through 6. I have 8 first graders, 4 second graders, and they combine those 2 classes. 6 third graders, 5 fourth graders, and they combine those 2 classes. 12 fifth graders and 12 sixth graders. For a total of 47 students that I will be responsible for while I'm there. I have a mentor teacher. Everybody has a mentor teacher. This is the person that is your point of contact at the school that you can go to, that helps you get set up and answers questions you might have. And then these Korean talk scholars. I have one. I was surprised that I was going to have one. Most of the people don't have one because, again, we're in the rural areas, so we're not by universities typically, and that's what the majority of the Korean talk scholars are currently in university, finishing up their degree, and those are the people that typically get picked to be the Korean talk scholars. So if you don't live by a university, you typically aren't going to have one just because of logistics. So I didn't even know that there is a university by me, which is nice to know. The Korean, so the co-teacher, I mean, you're supposed to be running the show. They're not there just to be the translator. They're there to help do integrated lessons with you, to run parallel activities, to help clarify any complicated instructions, but it's not like they're teaching and I'm just there, or I don't see it being a very even split either. So it's going to be more primarily me taking the wheel, but working with the co-teacher, and then kind of taking the direction from there. And they're not going to be there all the time either. Like, I'm required to be there to teach these, 17 classes. That's what it turns out to be. But they don't have the same requirements, so they might only be there like Tuesdays, or they might only be there to help out with the 6th graders. I don't know. I have to get more details from my school about that. I have pictures of what the classrooms look like. They're not very good on here, so they're not going to look good on there, but when I get there, I'll take pictures. I'm working Monday through Friday. It looks like I'm going in at 12 and I'm leaving at, okay, this is going to sound bad, 4:30. But I'm sure a lot of like lesson planning and after school stuff is going to be in there too. And my talk scholar said that there are other foreigners. So, and she gave me her contact information. So after this little video, I'm going to be emailing her with some questions. So there's that. Okay, so I guess I've talked a lot, but I had a lot to cover. And I miss you guys and hope everyone's doing well. And continue to send me your little emails and questions. And that's all I will say for tonight. So, and I say